Good evening. It's now 7 p.m. and I would like to start the meeting of the Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I would like to remind everybody present that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've received the following apologies from Councillor Onoja. He will possibly be late, but hopefully will be joining us. Is there any other apologies for absence? I think we've full. Excellent. So, item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 2nd of March 2022 be approved as a correct record.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
Chair. I've got something to raise on the minutes, but there's no matters arising on the agenda. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Councillor Worrell. Does any other member have anything to comment on the minutes, or are they approved? Excellent. Thank you very much. Item 3. Oh, have you got the?
Yeah, I've got something. There's not a matters arising on the agenda, is there?
Right. Okay.
No, I don't think they do. Thank you. So the report on CO1 was due back here. It was agreed at the meeting that CO1 would come back, and it's not on the agenda. I just wanted to know, I've got two things really. Is it still going to planning in the summer? And is it still the case that it will go, and it's not on the work programme as a substantive item for the rest of the year? So I just wondered when it would be coming back onto the work plan. Thank you.
Do you want to speak?
I will take this item away to my colleagues in the regeneration department, and we will get back to you in writing. Is that acceptable?
That's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Excellent. We've got a chance to discuss the work programme later on, and I think that's a good point to have on there. So, item 3, urgent items of business. So I've not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare a declaration of interest? Thank you. So we move on to item 5, housing strategy 2022 to 2027. We have approximately 60 minutes, but we can go longer, I'm sure. I would like officers to present their report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm here to present the Housing Strategies 2022 to 2027 report. The recommendations within this report are that Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee are asked to note the contents of this report and comment on the vision, aims, objectives and actions proposed in the housing strategy, and also to comment on the aims, objectives and actions within the housing asset management strategy and the housing resident engagement strategy. I am very, very mindful that the documents themselves are quite lengthy. I don't intend to go through them in particular detail. I will go through the presenting report, and then I would look forward to hearing your comments. So a little bit of introduction and background. The previous housing strategy was adopted in 2015. That expired in 2020. Due to circumstances in 2020, we weren't able to get that document refreshed, but we had the earliest opportunity to do it, and that's why we're here with you today. There's been a number of changes since that document was published. There's been changes in legislation, regulation, market trends, welfare reforms, and of course there was the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're still feeling the effects of that, and there's new impacts coming all the time. It's important to note that the housing strategy itself addresses the range of tenures in Thurrock. It's not just about the housing that we own as a landlord, that we manage. It is social housing more broadly, private sector, rental accommodation, and housing for owner-occupiers too, and other tenure types that do exist, but those are the main ones in Thurrock. It's also important to note that the housing strategy isn't there to analyse or propose options for sites for development. That lives in a very, very different place. Presented alongside this housing strategy are two other critical documents And these are more for the housing service of Thurrock Council. These are the housing asset management strategy, which is about managing, maintaining and investing in our stock, and the housing resident engagement strategy, which is about improving our interaction with all those who live in and around our homes and neighbourhoods. Although it's presented in a separate part of the report, I'm just going to touch on the strategic context, because it's really important to say that this isn't something that we've set out within housing to do in isolation. There are some really important overarching strategic documents that we've worked alongside to make sure that all of these things complement one another. There's no contradiction. They all push in the same direction. So we've got the joint health and wellbeing strategy. That's the highest level strategy for improving health and wellbeing outcomes for Thurrock residents. Its theme is levelling the playing field, which is incredibly important. And again, there's links there to housing. There are 6 domains in that. One of those is housing and the environment, and there are very, very strong links between the housing strategy and that domain. But there are also alignments between the other 5 domains and the housing strategy. I'll talk about housing and health and wellbeing shortly. Another document is the Better Care Together Thurrock Case for Further Change. This is about the transformation, improvement and integration of healthcare and third sector services to improve adult wellbeing. I'm sure that's also being presented at committees and will make its way through the political sign-off process. But there is some really strong alignment between that document and, again, this strategy. The last one to mention is the ongoing work on the local plan and how this strategy will actually inform and act as a bit of an evidence base towards part of the local plan. So this information will feed into that document, and colleagues from the development of the local plan have supported in contributing to this strategy as well. So the first of the things that, as the committee, you were asked to comment on, or are asked to comment on, is the housing vision. This is the statement for what we see for housing in Thurrock. I mentioned a moment ago about housing and health. They are so intrinsically linked. People with safe, secure, stable, warm, affordable homes have a strong foundation to go forward. And if you don't have those things, it will affect your well-being, and that well-being just won't be protected. We talk about a safe home. That can be a home which is hazard-free. It could be maintained. It can be compliant with gas and electric. But it goes beyond the physical maintenance of the property. It's also how safe someone might feel in that environment and within their neighbourhood or their estate. A secure home can refer to the tenancy. There are very, very insecure tenure types out there, and there is consultation nationally about changing those things. But security can also talk about, again, perception of safety and being safe from those things, from harms within your home. Suitability of home is wide-ranging. Things vary around size and type and location and accessibility of a property, and what is suitable for one household or one individual isn't necessarily the same for another. And affordable, again, is one of those things which is aligned to the specific needs and commitments of each household in Thurrock. There is no single affordability level because it varies so wildly. So with all of that in mind, I'm just going to read, and I promise not to read too much within the report, but I'm going to read the vision for the housing strategy as it is. So the vision is that every Thurrock resident will have access to a safe, secure, suitable and affordable home that meets their needs and aspirations, serving as a foundation to support their health and well-being. Residents will be supported at home and in their local area through connected services, neighbourhoods, localities and communities to achieve their vision of a good life. That last word in there might be familiar to you. There are services in the council that really are pioneering that vision of a good life and helping residents to achieve that. It's seen so much success, and we're hoping to bring that person-centred approach into housing. And that moves us nicely into the housing principles. We've set 8 key principles that, as a housing service, we really want to underpin all that we do going forward, the way that we make decisions, the way that we engage, the way that we collaborate. I won't go through all the text of them, but just to read the principles that are out. From a resident's perspective, what is important to you? What is it that matters to that person? Providing things at a right time, right place and high quality. Making decisions that support health and well-being. minimising bureaucracy, offering local strength-based solutions, making sure that we do things that don't break the law and meet statutory duties. And I'll elaborate on that one slightly. The language is used there, I can see, could be questioned, but it's about empowering staff to make the right decision in that moment with the resident, as long as they're not breaking the law, as long as they're meeting their statutory duties, to think laterally and have a little bit of confidence and empowerment to make the right decision for the resident that they're with. Being flexible and adaptable, and that relates to the point previously, and partnership working and collaboration. So these 8 pillars really are going to be the foundation for how, as a housing service, we move forward and try and deliver this strategy and all our work in the next 5 years. So then we move on to, I guess, the chunky bit of the housing strategy itself, the housing strategy's aims and objectives. I'll go through each of the 4 aims, what those objectives are, and then I'll wrap up this bit and I'll welcome your comments. So the first aim of the strategy is about delivering housing support and services, and it proposes a reframing and a refresh of the way we do it, moving away from that traditional, really dated view that people have problems that need solving and each service solves that individual problem, actually taking that strength-based whole person approach and working together so you don't get passed from person to person and team to team. We're looking to work within this wider system with adult social care, children's services, public health, NHS and third sector organisations, and support people to live positively. So our objectives are embedding that person-centred approach to housing support and services and developing locality and neighbourhood models for integrated housing services. And that last point there really links strongly to that case for further change strategy I was telling you about. The next aim is about meeting housing need. I've already said about how varied housing need can be and what is suitable for one is not suitable for another. The objectives within this section are, firstly, identifying and providing the right types of homes for Thurrock based on Thurrock need. And that's not just directly us providing homes as a landlord, but how can we facilitate and encourage others to provide the right types of homes. Addressing the housing affordability crisis in Thurrock, there are very real concerns about the cost of living at the moment, and that is probably only going to increase. So affordability is an ever-pressing item on the agenda. Preventing homelessness and ending rough sleeping in Thurrock is something that we absolutely aspire and aim to achieve, and I think that speaks for itself there. Delivering sustainable estate and housing regeneration within our own stock and our assets. And the last one is quite specific, but it's reviewing our model of sheltered housing provision, really taking stock of what it sets out to do. Is it doing that? How can we achieve those aims in a different way or better or more appropriately? We've had some success this year with the decommissioning of one complex with plans for the future and a whole new site being provided in Tilbury, which has been well received. So we're taking some learning from that. The third aim is protecting resident safety. This is about working to prevent people from experiencing harm to their physical health, their mental health. It looks at things like property conditions, fuel poverty, accessibility, antisocial behaviour, crime, domestic abuse, and that feeling of safety. Even if, you know, on paper, everything is perfectly secure, if someone doesn't feel safe, how can we do something about that? So the objectives here are improving warmth, safety and standards in the private sector homes. Again, that is not just private sector rented homes, but also those for owner-occupiers. Investing in and maintaining quality council-owned homes. This really does point towards the asset management strategy. Strengthening community safety and preventing antisocial behaviour. Tackling domestic and sexual abuse and violence. Supporting vulnerable adults and children. In recent years, we've seen some real success with programmes like Housing First and Head Start Housing that we've delivered in partnership with other organisations and other partners in the council. And we're finding more and more cause and opportunities to help support those who are most vulnerable into appropriate housing. And the final one here is about improving estate standards. This was something that came through when I was speaking to residents in the engagement for this strategy of a particular concern for residents, and quite rightly so. And then the last of these aims is strengthening community engagement and empowerment. Within the sector, there was recently a social housing white paper published, the Charter for Social Housing Residents, and resident empowerment and engagement and having residents involved in the governance and decision making really came through strongly. So we've taken that, we've taken the impact and the way communities came together during the pandemic to inform these objectives. The first of these is improving resident satisfaction and their access to information, so we are more transparent and more accountable, and strengthening, integrating and diversifying community and resident engagement, and that includes working with members as valued members of the community. So that is the housing strategy, crashed through quite quickly. I'm going to very briefly touch on the asset management strategy and resident engagement strategy, and then I will stop talking, I do promise. The asset management strategy is about our own stock, the physical assets that are the homes or the garages and the land that is within the housing revenue account. It's about managing and maintaining and investing in those, offering quality and affordable homes, but also reviewing some of these assets, seeing where further investment in their current condition might not represent the best value for residents or deliver the best outcomes for communities or their future needs, and how could we do something different in those places? Can we look to regenerate and redevelop in that space? We really do have an ambition to deliver good homes in well-connected neighbourhoods and aspire to do that. There are three aims and objectives for this strategy. Three aims for this strategy: delivering high-quality homes, maximising the value of our assets, and planning for a sustainable future. Again, the climate emergency is something that, as a council, there's been a commitment made towards, but certainly at the moment, if you're looking at energy and fuel prices, it is on the national agenda, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And then the resident engagement strategy. It's about how the housing service will improve its interaction and communication with all those who live in and around the council's 10,000 or so homes and the neighbourhoods. It's especially meaningful at this point in time, given the recent anniversary of the Grenfell tragedy, but resident engagement has never been more important than it is now, certainly with those people who may feel concerned in the places they live. This strategy aims to set the framework for future action, making sure that the interaction we have and the engagement is meaningful and valuable. It's not lip service, it's not consultation to tick a box. It is absolutely giving residents a voice and making sure that they are listened to, not just heard. We want to see resilient and respectful partnerships formed and maintained. It's not a one-time thing. This is a 5-year strategy, and we hope to continue this long into the future. There are 5 aims within this strategy, and you'll hopefully see that there is some crossover here with the other documents. Strengthening community engagement and empowerment, protecting resident safety and security, improving communication and interaction, enabling resident scrutiny and participation, and delivering opportunities for engagement. On that point of engagement, collaboration really has been a key principle in pulling these documents together, internally with colleagues from across the organisation, but with residents, with members, with communities, with third sector organisations, with housing associations, within the confines of the rules and guidance that was in place. We tried to be as wide-reaching as we could be. But this is only really the starting point, and everything we deliver going forward will be delivered in partnership with all those that it seeks to benefit and all those that have a part to play. And at that point, I will draw a line. Thank you very much, and open for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. It was, I found it very good reading. There's a lot in there. I know a lot of thought's gone into that, and what I will do first is open up to members who wishes to speak. Does any member wish to speak on this? Councillor Lydiard.
Yeah, thanks for the report, Ryan. I found it quite hard going, but it was very, very comprehensive, and can't really argue with anything that you've said in there. I think it's very, very full. But at this point, do you want us to comment on where the strategy isn't really working as well as we think it should? Because I agree with the strategy, but there's some areas where I think it's not actually working as well as it could. I know this is a new strategy, so is that for later, or
I can give some comment now, but also tell you what I'll do about later as well. So for now, what I would say is between the previous strategy and now, there has been some significant changes. The most impactful was the rent reduction. With the last strategy, there was financial assumptions made and then a 1% year-on-year rent reduction put in place that made many of the things that were put forward unviable. What I would say is that the thing that is probably most different now is that person-centred approach and that whole human thing that we are looking at, trying to see not those problems but that family, that household, that individual across the spectrum of support or services they're accessing, not just that single one. What I would like to do is, as a briefing note, offer to circulate to members a bit of a comparison of what has changed, maybe what wasn't delivered or what couldn't be delivered, what we've carried forward and what we're introducing as new, if that would be of use.
Right, because what I was thinking is I know that the pandemic has changed quite a lot of things. I mean, access for our residents has been quite difficult, and I've noticed that down in Tilbury. I spend a lot of time down there with Carol, and we find that when there are problems, it's very difficult for residents to access people in the council. You know, especially they like to come in and see people, and of course that's not working now. And also, I feel that although we have a very good resident engagement, maybe the information isn't getting back to all of our residents because, you know, there's only a few resident engagement people, and I would hope in the future that we would be looking at ways to strengthen that. And that's all I have to say, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I do think, a briefing note, looking at what went well, even better if, and what the changes are would be really good. Does any other member wish to speak on this? Councillor Redsail.
Thanks, Ryan, for the report. The ambition's good. If we deliver all this, we will be brilliant. But I think there's a lot of falling down we've done probably in the past. I think we need to get officers out on the street to check council properties more often than we do. Because I think we leave it too long if we do 3 months, but I don't think we do sometimes. You know, to leave it 6 months is too long to catch up on what's happening behind garages and everything. I'm glad you brought garages up, actually. It's been too long and we still aren't there. I know there's a lot of work been done, you know, and I applaud for what has been done, but I think it's not quick enough. You know, we're not doing that. There's a lot of garages falling apart, falling down, you know, and I know we're using that as part of our new housing, you know, that may come. I think most of the garages are not used for cars anymore. Can't fit them in there, so they're used just to put whatever in there. You know, I don't know why we're not looking at a lock-up somewhere, you know, for people to actually use, because they pay roughly, what is it, £12 a week for that. I mean, somebody may like a lock-up. I think that's something we should be looking into, you know, because if we're wanting to move some of the people that are using the garages just for storage, we should be looking at that more. Then maybe we may be able to take more garages down with the way to go forward. I think I'd really like to see some of the garages painted, done, because they've been like that for the past, I can go back 20 years, haven't been touched at all, and they're looking terrible. And it is only a paint job sometimes, you know, renewing some of the wood around the edges. If you're going to keep those garages, we ought to be looking at smartening it up. And that makes, you said about community, makes the area look better, you know, wherever you are. I haven't really, I mean, I think your vision is brilliant, you know, if we do some of these core principles, you know, if we get them to work, you know, probably Lynn and I have been on this committee probably too long now, and it's some of the things don't work, you know, and they need to work. for that reason, I think we've got to make this work now, because it's like it's going on. If it goes on another year and we come back here another year's time and we say it still hasn't worked, then what are we doing wrong? You know, there's got to be. But I do applaud your vision. You know, it's just hope it goes somewhere. I'm not putting a downer on it. I just feel the things that if we do properly, we can do such a lot. Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Councillor Redsell. Does anyone else wish to speak?
I've got stuff to say, as you would expect.
Councillor Worrell.
Thank you. The first question I've got to ask, so do you want me to just carry on and not keep going to you for every one question? I can just ask the officers until you stop me. Till you stop me. I've got a few. We've only got the one agenda item, haven't we? So, but I think officers would have expected that I would have been through the document. So the first one is, I see that this is for noting. Is there any scope to change anything in here, or is it good to go?
No, I mean the recommendation was note and comment on.
Okay.
In meaningful engagement, we wouldn't be coming to you with a document that was finished if we didn't want your opinion.
Okay, thanks for that, Ryan, and thank you. I want to say thank you because I know how hard you've worked on this. You know, I've been at the meetings where you've been out to residents. So first and foremost, whilst I've got some stuff to say on the agenda, on the item, I hope it's constructive. Okay, so the first thing I think, and Joy sort of kind of picked up on it, is that we had this, and the last one was in 2020, and it's not been here since. So it's all like, to anybody that's new, it's brand new. And I just wondered if there was scope for us to review this at the halfway stage, maybe in 2 years' time, bring it back, have a refresh, you know, check how we're doing. Are we delivering on some of the key parts of the policy? Because it's okay, I don't want to see you in 5 years' time come back here and say, well, I wrote a document in five years ago and it's gathered some dust up on the shelf somewhere, and we need to make sure that it is a working document, because what's the use of having a plan if we don't have it and we don't review it? And I know items come backwards and forwards, and this will come back in other agenda items, but as a document I think we do need to measure and see how far we're going. So I don't know how often, that's not for me to decide how often it comes back, but I do think that it needs a refresh, maybe at 2 years, 4 years and then 5.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. Within Chapter 8 on page 106 of the housing strategy, it does say that an annual update will be provided to Housing Overview and Scrutiny to ensure appropriate oversight of the action plan. So, yes, we will absolutely do that.
So we can make sure that it's updated. Okay. Right, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was on page 32. So this goes from, for my sins, I sit and listen to cabinet meetings as well. So if there's a meeting going on where I think that there's stuff that might be discussed. And last week they was talking about the local plan and our need to build houses. And our need to build a lot of houses. Okay, there's a lot of houses, means that could possibly be 32,000 houses, which is a lot. And so I do think that we could be a little bit more ambitious than 373 houses to add to that in the next 5 years. It don't really feel like we're pushing ourselves when we've got estate regeneration to happen. You know, I don't know where Teviot come from. I've never seen that on a meeting here before. I've never seen it on. So we're doing the Blackshots regen, and now we're doing Teviot as well. And I've never even seen a report on that. And I've been around a long time, so it's sort of kind of jumped through, and I've not seen it. So I just wondered where that come from and what the consultation was to get it onto the onto here. But one of the things that Councillor Coxall was talking about, and most of the cabinet the other day, was the need that we want our children to live local. Okay, we've got a borough full of young people coming up, and you know, and they need housing. And we've got the youngest population in the region, and we should be listening to our community. And then when we go on page 32. They don't register, they don't make it into the specific areas of identified people that we need to be building houses for. So I think that maybe there is another bullet point there, is that we do need to be building for our young people and to encourage them to stay local, because otherwise they'll up and leave and take all of their everything that they can do. They'll take all of their experiences and all of what they can bring to Thurrock, they'll take it out, and also Head Start housing. You know, so it's not mentioned, you know, like, are we going to build any more Head Start housing? Because again, at Children's Services last week that I was on that committee, we talked about housing for those that are in and leaving care. Sheltered accommodation, so happy homes, you know. So I'm just thinking, like, we've committed here to 373, and there's hundreds already there. You know, are we in this 5-year plan going to bring forward, you know, Whiteacre? I know it's been given back to social care. They're going right back to the very beginning. So, you know, our older people are not featuring in this enough to say that in this 5-year strategy we're going to build more happy homes. So do you want to start there? Thank you.
No problem. So just on a couple of points, the bullet points on chapter 32 relate to categories that the strategic housing market assessment identify. So they're not necessarily bullet points that we have put in and say these are the things that we are considering. It's just context of what the strategic housing market assessment is. But I recognise your point, and as one of those people who grew up in Thurrock and wanted to stay in Thurrock, I do appreciate that. On the point of Head Start housing, we have reference to Head Start housing within the Protect Resident Safety point on page 91. We have that we will continue to support it, and we will provide further properties by the end of 2027. So I mention these points to let you know that they are things we've considered and we are thinking about. So there's that. On the happy homes, I think it's fair to say that I'm not sure if the terminology happy is noted within there, but we certainly do talk about making sure that there is appropriate homes for older people.
Yeah, it talks about it, but it don't say it's going to deliver. I think that they deserve it, you know, like they absolutely deserve to be mentioned, that we are going to deliver happy homes for our elderly residents. We've recognised that what we've got isn't good enough, and that's not the homes that they want to live in. I have read all of it, and we're saying that the traditional sheltered accommodation is not what they want to live in anymore. But we don't say we recognise that, and we're going to build new. So we was going to use Whiteacre, you know, and it was in the housing development pipeline, and then it's disappeared. So I emailed the senior officer, and they're literally going back to scratch one on it. So, you know, but it does mention it should still be in this strategy, because it will be, whether it's social care builds it or whether we build it, it should be recognised that those older residents are there, and people are living longer. So we do need to make sure that whilst we're building houses and flats, we do need to build happy homes too. I don't know if you want to call them happy homes, but that's what the terminology is for them now. Yeah, thank you.
Just one point for me about the Teviot regeneration. So Teviot Avenue, very close to Councillor Churchman's heart.
I knew that. Yeah,
it will definitely be coming here.
Okay.
So it has not gone through any of the sort of approvals yet. It's being worked by officers in the background, and it will have the required engagement with residents, with ward councillors, and it will make its way here and then to cabinet.
But Grace High Rise didn't make it in here when, you know, the CO1, when the announcements to build CO1 into flats, the announcement also said that those people in Grace flats would be able to move into the CO1, but the Grace High Rise flats have not made it into the narrative here. So is that happening, or that's not?
I can take, as I said before, I'll take that comment away to
yeah,
my
but not the
colleagues
CO1. I'm on about the Greys. Are we not pulling the Greys flats down now? Because we said that they was coming down. Well, the leader of the council said that they was coming down, but it's not made it into this strategy that they'll come down. Blackshots, Teviot, and that's it.
We've got an ambition to develop a state regeneration programme. And in the first year, I think in the strategy, and I'm sure Ryan will give me a page number, we are committing to do a full options appraisals for what's possible in terms of regeneration of the estate, and that would include all of the high-rise blocks. Okay. So we're definitely ambitious, and we will do all due diligence first and foremost.
Thank you. And then the housing waiting list. Sorry, the housing waiting list. So that, you know, we've got what, 5,000, about 6,500 people on the housing list. So if we build 373, what we're doing, moving about 25 a month. You know, so it's going to be some years. And I just think that we need to be a little bit more ambitious, because those people, whilst we're building some of those 373, they're going to be moving out of flats to take some of those, because we're doing estate regeneration. Does this strategy have any plan to try to tackle those people that are on the housing waiting list?
So I would say it does. I tend to encourage caution with the housing waiting list total number as an absolute measure. People can submit applications and have very, very different circumstances now and never go back to it. Conversely, there are some people whose circumstances worsen significantly and they're given an appropriate priority. So although the numbers are what they say they are as number of applications, I just urge caution that we use it as a measure. But I would say, yes, the strategy does have an aspiration to provide housing for as many of those people as we can do. I accept and acknowledge your point. Could we be more ambitious with what we are proposing to do in terms of the number of properties? I think that's a fair challenge, and I would talk to colleagues on that point. Yeah, I think that's what I'd say on that point.
Okay, because you did say like that everybody would have access to a home, but that's not strictly true, is it? Because we've got people that were kicked off the housing list because they're living in suitable accommodation. You know, they seem to be unsuitable. So I can use my own family for that. You know, my brother moved home because my mum's elderly. And he's lived there with her for years upon years. But he's not allowed on the housing waiting list because he's seen as suitably home. But my mum's 84 and something's going to happen to her one day in a lot of years' time. But, you know, he is one of those people that does need to be there. So I do think that we do need to think about how we're going to tackle the housing list and that 373. I'm nearly there, Chair. And just to go away from the housing waiting list and all of that, maybe talk about neighbourhoods a little bit. The estate management, I just feel like that there's a lot that we're missing on estate management. There is, and any councillor could put you in a car for the day and take you to some estates that have really been neglected. And it used to be that neighbourhoods worked with neighbourhood teams. So you get people that think it's okay to have a car in their front garden that's a council house and rip it a bit. You've got people that think it's okay to do an oil change on our roads. You think the grass verging, the fly tipping, the alleys, you know, they're abusing our properties. And I think that there needs to be, and I know we've got some good officers, but we've got some officers that are not, they don't know their patch. They do not know their patch. In the elections, I went over to Bellis. And I took some photos of the inside of some sheltered, some low-rise flats, and I wrote my name on the railings because they'd not been cleaned, but the caretaker had signed that he cleaned them every day. And I went and checked them last weekend, and my name's still on those railings. Yet he's been in there every day, and he's signing that he's cleaning them. So who's not checking somebody else's work? Because that is the perception of what people see when they come to us. So I just think that we've got to get tighter on how we run our estates and expect people to be homes, because everybody, which it says here, look, responsible neighbourhood management. That is responsible neighbourhood management, is making sure that somebody is doing their job, because one of the indicators that you would have expected to see here is about the estate management and how people view. People will treat their estate how they see their estate. And if they see rubbish on the floor, they'll throw rubbish on the floor. And if they see that somebody's got a kick-down fence and it's not been made to be replaced, or they've not cut their edge, or all of that stuff, then it'll almost become like it's okay to do it. And I just think that we used to do it and we don't do it as much anymore. So I think that that's something that we need to have in here. And antisocial behaviour on estates didn't make it as an indicator either. But yeah, I know it's a council indicator. And I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Worrell. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor.
I'll say. Good evening. First of all, apologies for coming in late. Was trapped in traffic because of the tube strikes all the way from London. This is about housing and scrutiny. When I looked at this document, the first thing that came on to me was the old saying that says, an Englishman's home is his castle. I don't know if you heard about that. So obviously, my main point of interest, I don't know if anyone has said something about this affordable home. It keeps coming up every time and on and on and on. In 3.3, it did say the definition of affordable home is also aligned with the specific needs and commitments for every household. Affordable home is linked with many wide consequences such as fuel, poverty, impact, and physical and mental well-being. For me, I do not believe this is what an ordinary person, for example, people in South Chafford 100, would understand as an affordable home. For them, affordable home is a home that it is affordable, everyone can reach. And all we hear about affordable home, affordable home, affordable home. The homes are not affordable. How can we be able to build homes that young people who are on a very low income will be able to afford? And this is the point. How are we going to implement this policy? It's quite a very lovely policy. When I read through it, it tends to be very ambitious. It tends to address so many needs. But I'm really concerned about how we can make the homes affordable. That's my point. So how do we make sure the homes, the flats, or the properties in Thurrock are affordable by young people who have just either started work or maybe looking for a place to live? That's the point I'd like to know, please.
Thank you for the question. So just for a point of clarification, the 3.3, I'm sure you know this. 3.3, where it says the definition for affordable home, doesn't seek to provide a definition there, but it's one thing to have a home where the rent or the mortgage is within an affordable amount, but once you start putting on top the fuel costs, the council tax costs, the home insurance, all of these things, actually that affordable rent or that affordable mortgage, to run that home, it's not an affordable home. So it isn't to say an affordable home is this thing in these parameters. It's just to say that there is more to affordability than just the rent or the mortgage or the cost it's all the cost to live in that place, the cost to commute to work if you've had to find somewhere outside of the area because that's within your price range, but actually the fuel costs to drive to work are so much higher. So I just want to say that. From a perspective as a social housing provider and a developer, our aspiration and our aim that we state in this document is that all of the homes that we look to provide will be within local housing allowance rates, which are by far the lowest rates that you would find within the housing sector at the moment. There are some very real challenges with private sector housing affordability, and that requires a great deal of work. That's probably one of the largest challenges that we're going to face within Thurrock, and that's the affordability. I would love to be able to say this is how we can fix it and give you that commitment now, but it is so complex and there are so many factors that truthfully are beyond the controls of the local authority. But it's our aspiration that we have as many people accessing that as possible and living good lives, not stretching themselves so thinly that they're choosing between heating or food. So I can't tell you exactly how we're going to do that now, and I think it would be wrong if I tried to. But across the lifetime of this strategy, we are committing that we're going to find the best way that we can to give as many people access to that as we can do. And that includes, like I said, building our own homes, 374 or a more aspirational number, if we can make that commitment in the strategy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure that there should be a solution to every problem. And maybe something that we have to start looking into. When we use the term affordable home, it sounds to be actually misrepresented. It doesn't really explain what it means. How do we make sure that the homes, the properties are affordable? There must be something we have to do. I think it's something I think we should start maybe looking into to see how we can provide that roof over the young people. It's a great challenge, but it's one of those things I would love to see happen.
So just on that, one of the things that we've committed to within this strategy is to try and set an affordability standard for Thurrock. So we look at what affordable means in the context of this borough. I appreciate that what is an affordable home. We haven't set out here what an affordable home is, because I don't think you can, because it is so subjective to each household's needs and household circumstances. I think what is affordable to any collection of people, all Thurrock residents, would be vastly different. And that's why we steered away from setting in any rigid definition. But hopefully, through that affordability standard and study that we will look at the start of this strategy's lifetime, we will get a much better picture and we'll know some of those things that we need to try and address as best as we can. But I appreciate the points.
It could also be subsidized rent, subsidized bills or things like that. It's something we can look into and start fashioning it into the policies, see how we can support people that could bring into affordable homes. Thank you very much. I think that's for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redsell.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I agree with affordable homes. They're not affordable. So, our youngsters, as Lynn said, our youngsters are not going to be able to afford most of the houses that's coming on the market. As this is visionary, Ryan, you know, it's a vision that we've got to do something. Perhaps we ought to be looking at different types of housing. And if it's one-bedroom homes for starter homes, for them to get on, it's not always about council housing, is it? It's youngsters want to start to get on the housing list to better themselves, you know. And I think we've got to start doing something. I don't know. Some councils have done buildings for youngsters, one-bedroom, so they can actually start on that ladder, because there is no. As Councillor just said, affordable homes, if something's 400 grand, no youngster is going to afford that in a month of Sundays. They're never going to get there, you know, because they've got to put down so much deposit. And some don't want to save to, you know, I don't think, going back to schools now, I don't think we're teaching our youngsters to save anyway for their future. But they're going to have to think about their future at some point. And I think we should be looking at something different to build. We seem to be building sort of big houses and 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms. We're not thinking, as Lynn said, we're not thinking of those youngsters that have to start somewhere, you know. And even council houses, they have to start on the ladder somewhere. I personally think we should be getting people to take ownership of the property they're in, you know, because some don't. And as Lynn said, it's very right that if we take you around some of the places, you know, and you see some of the council houses, I don't think they could care less about them at all. And I think we're not stringent enough to tell them, this is your house, you should take care of it. You know, no matter what the council is the landlord, you have some, you've got to take some onus of it to look after it. So I think that's a lot we could do, you know, to start that off, because I think we're missing something sometimes. I mean, we were going to have a meeting years ago with mayors. It never happened. You know, we've not had that, you know, and I think we've even with the properties that are falling into disrepair, we have council houses stuck in the middle of private properties then they put the properties down that are in that area, because the person, as Lynn says, Lynn's right, you move a car onto it and it ruins the whole area. You know, it makes that, and you can go around and you can pick them out. You know where they are. So I think we've got to be a bit more stringent in getting out there and checking our council properties. We could all probably, sitting on this committee, take you around to many that are in a bad state of repair where nobody cares about them. You know, I've got one in my ward and nothing's been done about it yet at all. And we've been out on site visits and it's just horrible, really horrible. And that person is living in that, I would say, squalor, really. And we should be, that's getting the officers out there to do more visits to properties. Perhaps talk to councillors, you know, if we know where they are. You know, officers don't always know, as Lynn said, officers don't always know their area, where they are, you know, and I think we've got to get that sorted out to get properties up to standard. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, sorry. So just on a couple of those things, I'm pleased for the last point you made about the knowledge that the members have. One of the things we have committed to, as we have in this strategy, is under the estate, under the point around estate standards, reintroducing, re-implementing, or implementing for the first time resident and member and officer walkabouts, because, as you say, you have knowledge of the local area and residents have knowledge of the local area that the officers perhaps don't. So I think that's a valid point and something that we're trying to cover off in this strategy. On the point of the types of homes being provided, again, absolutely right that some developers, some people may come to the borough intending to build homes of a particular size that maybe residents of Thurrock might need properties of a different size or affordability. We use our data that we have in partnership with our housing development colleagues to try and inform other social housing providers that are coming to Thurrock to steer them in the direction for the household sizes, the property sizes we need. But this is also where our work now will go forward to inform the local plan, and it will make sure that that document, which is really responsible for the planning responsibility for the borough, takes these things into consideration. But absolutely right to raise all those things. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Can I just come back, Chair?
Yes, we've got a couple of questions.
Only a short one, just to come back, just to make a point that it's fine to have going out and having meetings outside in the borough if it's followed up. If you go out and you have a site visit and nothing happens, that's when a member probably gets so cross that nothing follows through. And that's what I want to see. If you go out on a site visit, please do something, you know. Otherwise, it's not worth our weight putting behind that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, that's a very good point. Councillor Worrell first.
Thanks, Chair. So first, I agree with Councillor Ananaji that we need Thurrock affordable. We can't keep setting it at 70% of the housing because, as I said earlier, the house opposite to me has gone up by £2,000 a year in the last £200 a month in the last 2 years. So that, you know, would not be affordable. So we do need to somehow find a way of tackling what is Thurrock affordable and measure it against the local salaries rather than what the mean average is. But what I wanted to talk about is different sorts of housing. So I believe that in Stamford there is a developer that has just built and bought onto site modular homes. They've been built off-site. All they've had to do is I want to go and see these. I've already requested that I can go and have a look at them once all the landscaping's done. They've literally gone in, done all the groundwork, done everything. The houses turn up with everything. All they've got to do is have the plumbing and the electric fitted. And they've got them on part rent, part buy. You know, something we should be looking at. So we could be doing mixed tenure. But imagine the amount of time we'd cut down. We've got all of this land that we keep saying, you know, we pulled down so much stuff that we've got empty places all around Thurrock. I could probably reel off 10 different sites that we've flattened and not done anything with. We could be bringing these modular homes on, you know, and they must be viably a good, viable way of building homes, or a developer wouldn't be doing it. And they've got them on like £5,000 deposit and then part rent, part buy. So there's got to be other ways at meeting our housing. And I think that, you know, as a housing scrutiny group, it might be that we all want to go and have a look at those as just looking at a different tenure for what we can bring here in Thurrock, because we've got to be ambitious and we've got to think differently. Because as I said, like, we've got to come up with 32,000 of these houses. So it'd be good if we did our bit in housing and increase that 373 for the next 5 years, which is, you know, I would expect that the portfolio holder's going to smash that because it's not ambitious enough for me. You know, I think it should be lots more than that, and there's a lot of way of making that, and modular homes might just be the way.
I know exactly the development you're talking about, and I'm equally as interested to see what those homes will be like. One of the things that I didn't say at the very start, I skipped over in the introduction, one of the things that changed from the last strategy to now is some of these new housing options, the tenure types that are becoming more prevalent, like shared ownership, and the opportunities for building new homes, like modular builds and off-site construction. So I think that those are all things that should and will be considered through the lifetime of this strategy. I don't think that we're in a position not to, and we've had some success recently with the Husk project, for example, in Chadwell, where it was a new type of construction for us as a landlord that's been quite successful. And so I would imagine throughout the lifetime of this strategy, we would be exploring similarly if it's viable.
Can I come back, Jen? Yeah, so in Children's the other night, they was talking about trying to attract teachers into the borough because we need maths, science teachers, and they're going to be coming on year one on a £30,000 a year salary. Well, they ain't going to be able to buy nothing here or even rent nothing here on just that. So we've got to be thinking out of the box and offering different stuff, you know, because that's a single teacher moving here. We need a little flat for that little single teacher to be able to rent. So, and it's a gap, and this is where it all joins to the local plan. You know, I want to see us play our part in the local plan and not just like get dragged along into it. You know, I think that housing should have a vision for what it can contribute, because at the moment we're failing the government. You know, every government target we're failing miserably, and and this is why the developers are getting away with everything, are planning. You know, they're getting it through and they're not developing it because they're land banking. So we've got to, you know, get our housing act together, because, you know, if we don't, we're going to fall foul. And it's embarrassing that we haven't even got our local plan anywhere near it. And I'm looking forward to joining Joy on that committee too. Thank you.
Brilliant. No, I think a site visit actually would be very good for us all. So would you all like to go and see that if that possibly was right? Excellent. I'm just going to bring Councillor Lydiard in now.
Quickly. Well, this is a new strategy, and a lot of the comments I've heard tonight are really relating to the old strategy. You know, there's complaints and problems, and I fully support them. They're very valid, and I've got a few myself. I'm not going to mention them tonight because I think it's probably the wrong time. But I think in our work programme, I see you mention monitoring, measuring and review in several places. I think there should be an opportunity for that feedback at every meeting, so that we can actually monitor how this strategy is working and put these comments to you. Thank you.
So I would say that I think it's absolutely right that the strategies do come, and there is an opportunity for updating conversation. The proposal within the strategies themselves is that it's an annual update. Now, I would, whether it's an annual update as this is, which is all three in one go, or actually we stagger them throughout the year to make it a little bit easier on everyone. But I wouldn't necessarily suggest personally an update on all the three strategies at every meeting for the next 5 years. But I'm sure throughout the setting of the work plan for future years it will be dealt with accordingly. But we certainly intend to bring it for updates.
Thank you. Does anyone else any other member wish to speak? Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot gone into this report, and you can see that there's the passion there and the ambition to achieve, which is great. But I equally think it's important to, as I think we've done tonight, is reflect as well, because an ambition's one thing, but meeting that ambition is another. And I know you want to reach for the stars, but you know sometimes you have to look at what you can meet. And some of the things here are what I'd consider to be low-hanging fruit: getting out, going into the communities, going with councillors who know their wards and residents, and just listening, and more importantly, action at the end, because I think that is the most frustrating thing when something comes up and we don't get deliverance. So, I think in terms of questions, I know, I believe, Ryan, you said 374 and Councillor Wall said 373, and I'm splitting hairs over one house. I just wanted to make sure which one it is.
It's 373 in the document.
373, fantastic. Just making sure of that for point of clarity. And is that aside from the local plan, that 373? So the local plan would have to generate more, or would that be your ambition?
So that the homes that we would provide as a social housing provider would contribute towards the needs for the borough. So they would contribute to that overall total rather than being an addition to. So we, as a developer, would be playing our part in providing the homes that the borough needs.
Thank you. Yeah, I do agree. I think with Councillor Warren and other members on that actually really would like to see as many as possible, because I think as homes get bought and as things progress, I know we historically haven't replaced, which I think is a shame, because there are people that don't get the same opportunities, and especially as we've had comments on affordability, and I think affordability is completely subjective. What one person can afford, another person can't. But actually, I think at this point, you know, just the traditional build 2, 3 bedroom homes, big gardens, all that side of things, we've got to think actually, is that actually affordable in itself? And are modular options, are other options, are one bedroom, lots of opportunities for people to get into the market, the way to go. And I think that's really going to be key to forming that local plan and getting that through, because I think that needs to happen as quick as possible. But as long as, for me, as in this committee, I think I'd hope we'd all agree that we need to play a part in that, and how we sit as housing, because it does affect, it isn't just about building however many homes it is, it's actually getting how our communities feel within that as well, because we've got a lot of council tenants that are going to have to be involved in that and live that every day. So I think we do need to keep them, and especially the engagement side of things. I think aside from that, get them engaged with that local plan. I know that's, you know, another side, but that's that really. So thank you very much. If there's no other question, Councillor Redstone.
Just a bit of praise, Ryan, actually. I mean, I don't know why you've had so much praise for the Chapel site that got built, Chapel St Mary's site, and the good things that have come from that, how good it is. 53 houses, a mix of houses, are so lovely. You know, the people who are living in those must think they've gone to heaven, because you know, 3-storey homes with a balcony has got to be lovely for them who've never had gardens, who've never had, you know, been in a high rise, or so. Why I'm asking is, why can't we just do more of those? You know, as Lynn said, 373 is peanuts. You know, if we do, and this is not a big site, is it, Chapel St Mary? That was quite a small site, but it is lovely, you know, and the praise you've got from that would be, if we could do more of those, we're going to, you know, get that back foretold from residents. They're going to really think that we are actually doing something for this. But it's just to give you a bit of praise.
As there's no other member wishing to speak, do members agree with the recommendations within the reports 1.1 and 1.2? Do we agree? Agreed? Brilliant. Agreed. Thank you very much. So, thank you for that report. So, item 6, the work programme. The work programme has been an initial document because it wasn't sent out originally, but this is now. Everybody should have a copy. That's the current work programme. Does anybody wish to speak on that and add any additions or comments?
Only that I'd like to see 01 to be back on it as a substantive item, please.
CO1. I have discussed that previously because I said that one really we need to get that done as quick as possible in my eyes. I think everybody's eyes because that really is important. Councillor Redsell.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just thought I brought up recently about the mayors. I think we were due to have a meeting with mayors, and I think there's lots of members who have questions to ask of mayors and what's being done, and it's not come forward. So I think probably most people on this committee, Lynn and I most, because we've been here the longest, but I think we need that meeting just to clarify and get some questions to ask of mayors, you know. And I think mayors need it too. They need to speak to us as members. Thanks, Chair.
If I take that, I mean, it's absolutely fine. Mayors are very welcoming, and I think at the time we sort of cancelled it due to sickness, and then we had the Omicron, I think, kick off. I think it was around that time. So.
It was so late that we was going to be out of committee and changing committee members, which we had. So there was no point doing it.
Yeah, I think
it was going to be gone.
We just got ourselves in that, but it's a new committee, and I'm sure all of the members would appreciate that. So I will get that organised. We'll start with getting dates. Mayors are absolutely welcoming and happy to provide that insight and conversation.
Can I just also ask there why the probably a pet hate of mine, the old garages. I've fed up with them now, to be honest. I've had enough. But why they have to be left till November? You know, there must be an update before that.
Yeah, I think it was the one before that was pretty busy. I mean, unless there's an update that we feel can come for the 21st of June, or a briefing note, if that would be. I think that's for you know, from what I'm seeing, and you know, there's lots of things like this actually could come quicker to us as a briefing note rather than, and you know, if we need to debate it and scrutinise it, that's fine. But actually, updates, having more regular updates rather than waiting for the 5 meetings a year to us to scrutinise, and then having an absolutely packed meeting and not having enough time to properly scrutinise each part, I think would be really beneficial. So if anybody does want a briefing note in particular, then please let me know, and we'll make sure that's done. Does any other member wish to speak or add anything in particular to the work programme? No? Not at this point. We'll review it every meeting. Yes, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And with that, I've got the conclusion. So this concludes the business from today's meeting, and I now declare the meeting finished at 7 minutes past 8.